So in the last video, we're talking about how evolution's at least some of the, I guess you could say, evidence for a singularity that Kurzweil is talking about is defined through the rate at which species seem to be evolving faster and faster and more complex. And we're saying this is totally possible even through natural selection, because the species that became more complex were able to survive better. Because, I mean, think about fish being able, the first fish, at least the first real fish, as we know them today, even though they're sort of, flat-headed almost, not flat-headed, but they almost had like a vacuum-shaped head. Their skulls were thicker, and the thickness of the skull allowed the brain to grow and have larger brains than their predators, the arthropods. And because of this, they're able to figure out things and have memory, the beginning of memory, more complex memory, and able to survive better. And these larger brains, and combined with their amphibious descendants, eventually led to other forms of species as we know today. So basically, being able to have more complex evolutionary traits in your descendants, no matter what those traits are, is basically a way to survive very well. And not every species needs to do that, because if we take this literally, then yes, then it doesn't make sense that some species will go all the way and other species won't. Why don't these evolve, and why do these do? But I mean, that's an interesting point. But evolution is very diverse, and there are a lot of levels and plateaus and places to stop that work. And sometimes species don't have any motivation or drive through natural selection to continue to change. Some remain the same. Now, I guess you could say that's one thing that I don't totally understand, but it seems to work. I mean, I don't know if there's some kind of self-organizing principle to some forms of evolution that I wouldn't say it chooses not to do something, but there's no reason for it to continue to evolve. Let's just say there's a nice pond that stays a certain way, the variables don't change, and the species remains the same, because this one happened to stay the same. And that's why there are still fish, and not all the fish became amphibians. There are still frogs, not all frogs became more lizard-like. That's why there are birds, that's why there are some mammals, or there's still mice, or still rodent-like creatures. I mean, a majority of species do change, but some have little spots that kind of always work. They change a little bit, but they overall remain fish. Overall remain some fish, and so forth. And but that a lot of species tend to change and evolve and adapt to changing environments and other predators. But at any rate, going back to Kurzweil and evolution, there still seems to be some kind of drive, some kind of weird direction that evolution is taking. Not necessarily with intent. You don't have to get anything. It doesn't have to be any kind of spiritual inclusion in all of these theories. People tend to take a spiritual stance on these sort of things, saying like, "Wow, look at this! Life is evolving, become more and more complex. Machines are the next life forms. That's crazy. That's amazing. There's got to be some kind of direction. Like, why are we here? What is the purpose?" And these, some may argue that looking for a purpose in here is just a human-centric thing to do, trying to find a reason why these things are happening, when in fact there is no real reason except for the scientific variables, natural selection, and overall evolution. It's as Dawkins says, the blind watchmaker. Now, I think that's as good a theory as any. I really don't think we have evidence for anything contrary. And I'm open to there being more evidence. For instance, I remember there was a what's it called? An article a few months ago about a university that did a study on the DNA of a particular organism, and they noticed that the DNA was able to self-organize after them tampering with it. So that made them hypothesize that DNA and life does have some kind of self-organizing principle. I wouldn't be surprised if it did. I don't think that really necessitates there needing to be anything spiritual or supernatural about it. It just means life has a self-organizing principle, which it tends to have. So it raises the question: well, then is evolution just is it a blind watchmaker? Is it blind? Is it a blind drive to adapt and survive, or does it have some form of in evolution itself? As living beings and organisms, do they have some form of intelligence, almost like a machine would, to maintain order and self-replicate and self-organize? Is there some of that? You know what? I think there's a very good chance. But that doesn't necessitate intelligent design. And it's not that organisms were intelligently designed. It's that life itself has a form of intelligence. We're intelligent beings. Fish have a form of intelligence. It's a very, basic form of intelligence that they would have, but they still have it. So why wouldn't life be able to do that on its own, without a creator? Because we understand that evolution didn't need any kind of supernatural imposition on it. Well, not everybody understands that, but it seems to be that seems to be the case. Now, there are some weirder aspects to evolution that goes a little bit off the singularity and a little bit into understanding evolution, such as the quantum evolution, which species all over the world seem to rapidly change. Now, and you might ask, well, how does that happen without needing the time for natural selection to occur? How does it happen so fast? Theoretically, there's a few explanations for this, not entirely understood yet, but one would be climate change, large variables that impact the entire environment, such as, a comet, or volcanic activity, a virus that wipes out many species. But since some species have the mutation to survive that, those are the ones that rapidly become the only present species in the next couple of generations. That's possible too, but overall we're not entirely sure. Now, one of the interesting things that I think sort of support in evolution having some kind of not being so blind, being more intelligent in itself, having some kind of strange form of self-organizing intelligence, is the fact that we understand that the different types of complex life, multicellular life, evolved independently of each other at the same time. Now, I have an interesting article about this I was just reading. Fungal life, bacterial, and animal life all evolved complex organisms from single-celled organisms very rapidly, and also, during the Cambrian explosion at the same time. Now, independently of each other, all over the world. This is very interesting. Why did that happen? I mean, obviously, this happened so long ago, it's very difficult to tell, but it raises the question, well, what's going on here? Does this have something to do with quantum evolution? Are organisms or life more connected? Does this go into, this is a little crazy, but does this go into quantum physics, how things are, one particle here can affect another particle at the end of the universe? Is organic life somehow connected like this? Another interesting thing in archaeology and anthropology is the development of human societies. Civilization started around the world around the same time, with people that were completely independent of each other. I'm sure there are a few other descriptions of this happening through other organisms throughout the history of life. So, how does this happen? Why does it happen? That's a question I'd like to raise for anybody who's listening. Maybe you know. I'm sure there are some explanations you could say, climate, different things happen, but it just seems very strange. It seems a little bit too coincidental and too repetitive to happen. All these explosions of a new form of life without. It just seems too orderly, I guess you could say, for it to just be part of natural selection. Perhaps evolution has another component to it, another sort of drive. I don't know. But it's an interesting aspect to I guess you could say. It has everything to do with Kurzweil and the singularity, because it's trying to understand evolution, trying to understand life. And I guess that's it for this video. I might make a part 3 if I can think of anything else to say. I thought I had something else. So yeah, stay tuned, and if you're interested, thanks for watching.